Hello, everyone. My name is Anquinette Dow, and today I'll be presenting on Chlamydia trachomatis and how this tiny bacteria can damage the eye and eventually lead to blindness. I'll explain how the infection works and why it's a global health problem, and I'll review three scholarly articles that help us understand this disease from different angles. Chlamydia trachomatis is a gram-negative obligate intracellular bacterium. This means it can only survive and reproduce inside our cells. Different strains infect different parts of the body. Some target the genital tract while others specifically target the eyes and cause trachoma or inclusion conjunctivitis. The reason this bacterium is so damaging is because it hides inside epithelial cells, making it harder for our immune systems to clear. This infection matters because trachoma is still the leading infectious cause of blindness in the world. Millions of people in low income countries are at risk, especially children. Adults and newborns can also be affected. The most important thing to understand is that eye chlamydia creates chronic, repeated inflammation that leads to permanent scarring. The good news is that trachoma is preventable with antibiotics, facial cleanliness, and environmental improvements. In today's presentation, I'll explain how Chlamydia trachomatis infects the conjunctiva, which is part of the eye's surface. My chosen system is the ocular surface. Then I'll review three scholarly articles covering the global burden of trachoma, the clinical types of chlamydial eye disease and the pathogenesis, the biological mechanisms behind scarring and blindness. At the end, I'll connect the studies to show how they support one another. The cornea and conjunctiva work together to protect the eye and keep vision clear. The tear film washes away microbes and debris. The eyelid spread tears and shield the eye from injury, and a healthy conjunctiva provides a smooth surface. When everything is normal, the eye stays moist, clear, and protected. When Chlamydia trachomatis reaches the eye, usually through contaminated fingers, flies, or during childbirth, it infects the conjunctival epithelial cells. Repeated infections trigger chronic inflammation. Over time, this leads to scarring. The eyelids eventually turns inward, which causes the eyelashes to scrape the cornea. This scratching causes pain, corneal damage, and can lead to permanent blindness. The first article by Solomon and colleagues focuses on the global burden and clinical stages of trachoma. They explain that trachoma has two main processes: repeated infection during childhood and then scarring as adults. They also highlight the safe strategy: surgery, antibiotics, facial cleanliness, and environmental improvements as an effective public health approach. This article is important because it connects the microbiology of the disease with worldwide patterns of blindness. The second article by Sapathi and colleagues review the clinical forms of chlamydial eye infection. They discuss trachoma, adult inclusion conjunctivitis, and neonatal conjunctivitis. They also emphasize that adult cases are often linked to untreated genital chlamydia and that systemic treatment with azithromycin or doxycycline is effective. The article helps us understand how eye infections look in real-world clinical settings and how they should be treated. The third article by Tomasis and colleagues explains the pathogenesis of trachoma, the mechanism behind the scarring. Ocular strains infect the conjunctiva early in life. Recurrent infections produce chronic inflammation, which triggers tissue remodeling and fibrosis. The article stresses that both the bacterium and the body's own immune response contribute to scarring. This helps explain why repeated infections lead to long-term damage. When we compare all three studies, a clear pattern emerges. Repeated infection plus chronic inflammation causes scarring and blindness. Article 1 explains the global burden and public health strategies. Article 2 covers the clinical appearance and treatment. Article 3 explains the cellular mechanisms behind scarring. Together, they show preventing blindness requires addressing infection, environment, and long-term immune damage. In conclusion, Chlamydia trachomatis infection of the eye disrupts the normal function of the conjunctiva and cornea. Trachoma remains the leading infectious cause of blindness, but it is preventable. Early diagnosis, timely antibiotic treatment, facial cleanliness, and improved living conditions can prevent scarring and protect vision. This research highlights the importance of coordinated public health efforts. These are my 3 scholarly sources I use for my research. They include a major global review of trachoma, a clinical overview of chlamydial eye infections, and a research paper on the mechanisms behind scarring.